The ship was small and old. It made strange sounds when it flew through space. Yuna sat in the pilot seat and watched the stars move past the window. She was 19 years old, with black hair tied behind her head, and eyes that noticed everything. She was carrying medicine. Simple work. Fly from one station to another. Deliver the boxes. Get paid. Go home. Her brother, Taiho, had given her this job because it was safe. Nothing dangerous. Nothing complicated. But the galaxy did not care about simple plans. The alarm screamed. Red lights filled the small cockpit. Yuna's hands moved fast across the controls, but she already knew it was too late. 3 Council warships appeared from nowhere. They surrounded her tiny vessel like wolves around a rabbit. "Human vessel, you have entered restricted space," a cold voice said through the radio. "Power down your engines. Prepare to be boarded." Yuna looked at her navigation screen. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. This was not restricted space. She had checked the maps 3 times before leaving. "There must be a mistake," she said into the radio. "I have all the correct permits." "I am carrying medical supplies to Station 47, the voice laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "There is no mistake, human. Power down now, or we will destroy your ship." Yuna closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about fighting. She thought about running. But 3 warships against her little cargo vessel? There was no chance. She powered down the engines. The soldiers came through her airlock like a flood. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their armor was black, and their weapons hummed with energy. They grabbed Yuna and threw her against the wall. "Where is it?" one of them shouted. "Where is the stolen technology?" "I do not have any stolen technology," Yuna said calmly. "Check my cargo." "It is only medicine." It did check. They tore apart every box. They ripped open every container. They found exactly what Yuna said they would find. Medicine, nothing else. But it did not matter. The commander of the soldiers, a creature named Reek, looked at her with disgust. He was taller than the others. His eyes were like black stones. "We received a report that this vessel contains classified council weapons," he said. "The report came from a trusted source." "The report is wrong," Yuna said. Reek smiled. His teeth were sharp and yellow. "The council is never wrong, human. You are under arrest for theft, espionage, and terrorism against the Galactic Council." They put chains on her wrists and ankles. The metal was cold and heavy. They dragged her onto one of the warships and threw her into a cell. The door closed with a sound like thunder. Yuna sat in the darkness and waited. She knew what was happening. She had heard the stories. Humans who traveled too far from Earth sometimes disappeared. The council said they were criminals. They said humans were dangerous and primitive. They said humans needed to be controlled. The truth was simpler. The council was afraid. Humans were new to the galaxy. They were weak and few in number. But they learned fast. They adapted. They survived. And that made the old species nervous. 3 days passed. They gave her water but no food. They asked her questions she could not answer. They hit her when she said she did not know. On the 4th day, they brought her to the council station. It was the largest structure Yuna had ever seen. A massive ring floating in space, covered with lights and towers and ships. Millions of creatures lived there. Hundreds of species. The heart of galactic civilization. They marched her through long hallways filled with aliens who stared at her. Some looked curious. Some looked angry. Most looked at her like she was an insect. Something small and unimportant. The courtroom was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Yuna could not see it. Rows of seats rose up on all sides, filled with creatures of every shape and color. In the center was a platform where she was forced to stand, and above her, on a throne of white stone, sat High Arbiter Vonn. He was old. His skin was purple and wrinkled like dried fruit. He had 2 small eyes that burned with hatred. When he looked at Yuna, she felt like he was looking at garbage. "Human," Vonn said. His voice echoed through the room. "How disappointing. I expected something more interesting today." The crowd laughed. Una did not speak. She stood straight and looked at everything around her. She counted the guards. 12 near her. 6 near the exits. 4 near Vaughn. She measured the distances. She noted the weapons her teachers had trained her well. Always observe. Always plan. Always be ready. This creature is accused of serious crimes against the Council, Vaughn continued. Theft of classified technology, espionage, terrorism. The evidence is clear. A hologram appeared in the air. It showed documents, recordings, testimonies. All of it was fake. Una had never seen any of it before. The trial will begin immediately, Vaughn said. No delays. No human advocate will be permitted. This is council law. In the gallery above, a woman named Hannah watched with horror. She was human too, a diplomat who had worked in the council for 10 years. She had seen many injustices, but this was different. This girl was innocent. Anyone could see it. Hannah tried to stand. Arbiter Vaughn, I request permission to speak on behalf of the accused. She has the right to silence. Vaughn shouted. One more word, diplomat, and you will join her in chains. Hannah sat down slowly. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was working fast. She needed to contact someone. She needed help. She pulled out a small device hidden in her sleeve. Carefully, quietly, she typed a message. Far across the galaxy. On a ship called the Iron Ghost, a man named Tai-Ho received the message. He read it once. He read it twice. Then he started screaming orders at his crew. His little sister was going to die unless he found a way to save her. Back in the courtroom, Una stood alone in her chains. The alien crowd looked down at her with contempt. Hi, Arbiter. Vaughn smiled his cruel smile. Let the trial begin, he said. Una said nothing. But inside her mind, she was already planning. She was already counting. She was already preparing for what she would do if no one came to save her. She would save herself. The trial was not a trial. It was a performance. A show designed to humiliate one small human girl in front of the entire galaxy. Una understood this from the first moment. She stood on the platform in her chains and watched as the council presented their lies. Witness after witness came forward. Aliens she had never met told stories about crimes she had never committed. I saw her plant the bomb, said a creature with 6 eyes. She killed 20 of my people. She stole weapons from our research facility, said another with scales like a fish. I have the security footage. The footage was fake. The witnesses were paid. Everyone in the room knew it, but no one cared. The council wanted a human to punish. They had found one. High Arbiter Vaughn sat on his throne and smiled through the whole performance. He asked no difficult questions. He challenged no obvious lies. He simply nodded and wrote notes on his tablet. Very troubling, he said after each testimony. Very serious indeed. In the gallery, Hannah watched with growing despair. She had worked in council politics for a decade. She knew how corrupt the system was. But seeing it used against an innocent girl made her stomach twist with anger. She had sent the message to Tai-Ho 4 hours ago. He had replied with 3 words, I am coming. But would he arrive in time? The council station was far from the outer rim. Even the fastest ship would need at least 2 days to reach them. And this trial was moving fast. Too fast, why Una showed no emotion on her face. She stood like a statue while the lies piled up around her, but her eyes moved constantly. She watched the guards change position every 30 minutes. She noticed that Vaughn dismissed his personal protection when he delivered important speeches. He liked to stand alone on his platform. He liked to feel powerful. A mistake, Una thought. A fatal mistake. Her teachers at the academy had taught her many things. How to fight. How to survive. How to kill. But the most important lesson was patience. Wait for the right moment. Never act in anger. Never act in fear. Act only when you are certain. She was not certain yet. So she waited. The trial continued for 6 hours. The council brought forward 37 witnesses. They presented hundreds of documents. They showed recordings and photographs and reports. All of it was false, and all of it was accepted without question. Finally, Vaughn raised his hand. The room fell silent. "The accused will now speak," he said. "Do you have anything to say in your defense, human?" Every eye in the courtroom turned to Una. Thousands of aliens stared down at her, waiting for her to beg, waiting for her to cry, waiting for her to provide entertainment. "Why?" Una looked up at Vaughn. Her voice was calm and clear. "I am innocent of every crime you have described. The witnesses are liars. The evidence is manufactured. This trial is a mockery of justice," the crowd murmured. Some laughed. Others looked uncomfortable. Vaughn leaned forward on his throne. "Is that all? No tears? No pleas for mercy?" "I do not beg," Una said. "Especially not to those who do not deserve respect." The crowd gasped. No one spoke to a high arbiter that way. It was unthinkable. It was suicidal. Vaughn's face twisted with anger. For a moment, his mask of calm superiority slipped. Una saw the real creature beneath. A small, hateful being who enjoyed hurting those weaker than himself. "You dare insult this court?" Vaughn hissed. "You dare insult me?" "I speak only the truth," Una said. "Something this court has not heard today." Vaughn stood up. His robes flowed around him like dark water. "I have heard enough. This human has shown no remorse. She has shown no respect. She is guilty of all charges." "Now, there was no real trial," Una said. "You decided my guilt before I entered this room." Vaughn screamed. His voice echoed off the walls. "You will speak only when permitted." The guards moved closer to Una. Their weapons hummed with energy. She felt the heat from the barrels near her skin, but she did not flinch. She did not look away from Vaughn. "You sentenced a boy last month," she said quietly. "A human boy. 12 years old. His name was Minho." Vaughn stopped moving. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Fear? It was hard to tell. "He was my student," Una continued. "I taught him mathematics and history. He wanted to be an explorer when he grew up. He wanted to see the stars." The courtroom was completely silent now. Even the guards had stopped moving. "You sentenced him to death for stealing food," Una said. "Food. He was hungry, and you killed him for it." Vaughn recovered his composure. He straightened his robes and lifted his chin. "The law is the law. Criminals must be punished, regardless of age or species. He was a child. He was a thief. And you are a terrorist."
Ow.
Vaughn turned to address the crowd. "I have reached my decision. The human known as Una is guilty of all charges. The sentence is death by disintegration. The execution will take place at dawn." The crowd erupted in cheers. Aliens stamped their feet and clapped their hands and made sounds of celebration. A human would die tomorrow. How wonderful. How satisfying. Hannah covered her mouth with her hand. Tears ran down her face. She had failed. She had not been able to save this girl. But when she looked at Una, she saw something strange. The girl was not crying. She was not shaking. She was smiling. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was there, and in that moment, Hannah understood something important. This girl was not afraid. This girl was not helpless. This girl had been trained for situations exactly like this. The guards grabbed Una's arms and began dragging her toward the exit. As she passed beneath the gallery, she looked up at Hannah. Their eyes met for just a second. Una spoke 5 words. She spoke them softly, so that only Hannah could hear. "You will regret this moment." Then she was gone, pulled through the doors and into the darkness of the prison level. The courtroom continued celebrating. Vaughn accepted congratulations from his fellow arbiters. Everything was perfect. But Hannah sat frozen in her seat. She had seen the look in Una's eyes. She had heard the ice in her voice. That girl was not going to die tomorrow. Someone else was. They came for her at dawn. 6 guards in black armor, carrying weapons that could turn a body into dust. They opened her cell door and found her sitting calmly on the floor, her eyes closed, her breathing slow. "Get up, human," the lead guard said. Time to die. Yuna opened her eyes. She looked at each guard carefully. She measured their positions, their weapons, the distance between them. She had been doing this calculation all night. Now she was certain. "I will walk," she said. "You do not need to drag me." The guards laughed. They thought she was being brave. They thought she was pretending not to be afraid. They did not understand that she was simply stating a fact. They removed her chains from the wall, but kept them on her wrists and ankles. Heavy metal links connected her hands in front of her body. The guards surrounded her in a tight formation and marched her through the corridor. The execution would be public. The council wanted every human in the galaxy to see what happened to those who defied them. Cameras were already broadcasting to billions of viewers across thousands of worlds. The courtroom was full again. Even more aliens had come to watch the spectacle. High Arbiter Vaughn sat on his throne, dressed in ceremonial robes of gold and white. He looked pleased with himself. Today would be a good day. Yuna was brought to the center of the room. The guards forced her to her knees on the platform. Above her, the disintegration device hummed quietly. One button, and she would be erased from existence. "Citizens of the Council," Vaughn announced, his voice echoing through the room. "Today, we deliver justice. Today, we show the galaxy that no species is above our law." The crowd cheered in the gallery. Hannah watched with tears streaming down her face. She had tried everything. She had called every contact, begged every official, sent messages to every human outpost. Nothing had worked. The girl would die, and she could do nothing to stop it. "The human known as Yuna has been found guilty of terrorism, espionage, and theft," Vaughn continued. "The sentence is death. Does the condemned have any final words?" The cameras focused on Yuna's face. Billions of beings across the galaxy leaned forward, waiting to see fear. Waiting to see a human break, Yuna looked directly into the camera. Her voice was steady and clear. "My name is Yuna. I am innocent of all crimes. Remember that." And she moved. No one saw exactly what happened. It was too fast. One moment she was kneeling in chains. The next moment, the guard beside her was falling. His neck twisted at an impossible angle. Yuna had spent 3 years at the academy learning to fight. She had spent another 2 years in a secret program that turned ordinary soldiers into weapons. Her teachers had broken her down and rebuilt her into something new, something dangerous. The chains were still on her wrists, but that did not matter. She had learned to fight with chains. She had learned to use them as weapons. She swung the heavy links into the second guard's face. His helmet cracked. He dropped. She grabbed his weapon before it hit the ground and fired twice. 2 more guards fell. The remaining guards finally reacted. They raised their weapons. They shouted orders. But Yuna was already moving. She rolled under their shots, came up behind them, and killed them both with precise strikes to their throats. 6 guards. For seconds, all dead. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Aliens screamed and ran for the exits. Guards from around the room rushed toward the platform. But Yuna was not running away. She was walking toward Vaughn. The High Arbiter scrambled backward on his throne. His face had turned pale purple. His eyes were wide with terror. "Guards!" he screamed. "Stop her. Kill her." More soldiers poured into the room. Yuna counted 12. 15. 20. They formed a wall between her and the throne. Their weapons raised. She did not slow down. The first soldier fired. Yuna ducked under the beam and closed the distance in 2 steps. She took his weapon, turned, and used him as a shield. The other soldiers hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, she killed 3 more. The crowd watched in horror. The cameras broadcast everything. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers saw a small human girl cut through elite council soldiers like they were made of paper. Commander Reek arrived with reinforcements. He saw the bodies on the floor. He saw Yuna standing in the middle of the carnage, barely breathing hard. And for the first time in his long military career, he felt afraid. "All units concentrate fire," he ordered. But Yuna was already through their line. She moved like water, flowing around attacks, slipping through gaps that should not exist. Bodies fell behind her. She reached the steps to Vaughn's throne. The High Arbiter had no more guards between them. He had sent them all forward, and they had all failed. Now he was alone with the girl he had condemned to death. "Wait," he said, his voice shaking. "Please, we can negotiate. I can give you freedom, wealth, anything you want." Yuna climbed the steps slowly. Blood dripped from her chains. Her face was calm. Her eyes were empty. "You killed Minho," she said. "A 12-year-old boy. He cried when they took him. He called for his mother." "That was different," Vaughn stammered. "He was a criminal. The law required the law." Yuna grabbed Vaughn by his throat and lifted him off the throne. He was twice her size, but she held him like he weighed nothing. "Your law murders children." She looked into the cameras. Every human in the galaxy was watching. Every species that had suffered under Council rule was watching. "Humanity remembers," she said. "Humanity does not forgive." Then she killed him. She did not make it quick. She made it last. She wanted the galaxy to see what happened to those who hurt her people. She wanted them to understand that humans were not weak. Humans were not prey. When it was over, she dropped Vaughn's body on the floor. The courtroom was silent. Even the soldiers had stopped trying to reach her. They stood frozen, staring at the scene before them. Yuna turned to face the cameras one last time. Her face was covered in blood. Her chains hung heavy from her wrists. But she stood straight and tall. "I am Yuna of Earth," she said. "Send your armies. Send your fleets. We will be waiting." Then she disappeared into the chaos of the screaming crowd. The broadcast continued for 3 more minutes before someone thought to cut the feed, but by then it was too late. The galaxy had seen everything, and nothing would ever be the same. The alarms screamed through every corridor of the council station. Red lights flashed on every wall. Every screen showed the same message. Lockdown. Dangerous human, kill on sight. Yuna ran through the chaos. Around her, thousands of aliens pushed and shoved and screamed, trying to escape the courtroom. She used the crowd as cover, moving with the flow of bodies, keeping her head down. The blood on her face helped. No one looked twice at another injured alien fleeing the massacre. They were too busy saving themselves. She needed to find a way out. The station was enormous. Thousands of corridors, hundreds of levels, dozens of docking bays. Without help, she would be lost within minutes. Her chains were still attached to her wrists. She had no weapon. She had no ship. She had no plan. But she was alive. And that was more than the council had expected. Commander Reek's voice echoed through the station's speakers. "All security teams, converge on level 47. The human is heading toward the maintenance sections. Seal all exits. No one leaves until she is dead." Yuna changed direction. If they expected her on level 47, she would go somewhere else. She found a service ladder and climbed down, dropping 3 levels in seconds. Her muscles burned. Her lungs ached, but she kept moving. She reached level 44 and found herself in a narrow corridor filled with pipes and cables. The air was hot and smelled like metal. This was the station's mechanical heart, where machines kept millions of beings alive. A door opened behind her. Yuna spun around, raising her chains as a weapon. A figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Hannah. "Wait," the diplomat said quickly, raising her hands. "I am here to help you." Yuna did not lower her guard. "Why? Because what they did to you was wrong. Because I have watched this council hurt innocent people for too long." Hannah stepped closer. "And because your brother is coming." Something flickered in Yuna's eyes. A tiny spark of hope, quickly hidden. "Taiho. I sent him a message during your trial. He should arrive within the hour." Hannah pulled out a small device. "I know this station. I have worked here for 10 years. I can get you to a docking bay where he can pick you up. Why should I trust you?" Hannah looked at her steadily. "You should not. But right now, I am your only option." Yuna considered for a moment. Then she nodded once. "Lead the way." They moved through the maintenance corridors, avoiding main pathways and security checkpoints. Hannah knew every shortcut, every hidden passage, every blind spot in the camera network. She had spent years learning the station's secrets, never knowing exactly why. Now she understood. She had been waiting for this moment. "How did you do it?" Hannah asked as they climbed through a ventilation shaft. "In the courtroom? I have never seen anyone move like that." "Training," Yuna said simply. "What kind of training?" Yuna was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice flat and empty. "Earth has a secret program. They take children with certain abilities and train them to be soldiers. Soldiers who can survive alone in hostile territory, who can complete missions that regular forces cannot." Hannah felt cold. "They took you as a child?" "I was 8 years old. My parents thought they were sending me to a special school." Yuna laughed bitterly. "In a way, they were right. I am sorry. Do not be. The training saved my life today. It has saved my life many times." Yuna's voice hardened. "But it could not save Minho. I was his teacher at the academy. I was supposed to protect him, and I failed." They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Hannah checked her device and pointed left. "This way. The docking bay is 2 levels up." They climbed another ladder. Yuna's arms shook with exhaustion. She had not slept in 2 days. She had not eaten in 3. The fight in the courtroom had drained the last of her reserves. But she kept climbing. She would rest when she was safe. She would rest when she was home. They emerged into a wide corridor that led to docking bay 12. Through the windows, Yuna could see ships of every size and shape. Freedom was so close. Then the soldiers appeared, 20 of them, blocking the path to the docking bay. Commander Reek stood at their center, his weapon raised. "You cannot escape, human. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Yuna stepped in front of Hannah. "Stay behind me. There are too many," Hannah whispered. "You cannot fight them all. I do not have to fight them all." Yuna looked at Reek. "I only have to survive for a few more minutes." Reek laughed. "Minutes. You will be dead in seconds." Explosion shook the station. Everyone stumbled. The lights flickered. Through the docking bay windows, Yuna saw a ship tearing through the station's outer hull. It was an old freighter, battered and ugly, the weapons that should not exist on a civilian vessel. The iron ghost. Taiho's voice crackled through the station's damaged speakers. "Yuna, Bay 12. "Move, Reek," screamed orders. His soldiers opened fire. But the explosion had damaged the corridor's gravity systems. Shots went wild. Bodies floated off the ground. Yuna grabbed Hannah and pulled her toward the docking bay. She kicked off walls and ceilings, using the zero gravity to move faster than the disoriented soldiers could track. The iron ghost crashed through the docking bay doors. Its cargo ramp was already opening. Taiho stood at the top, firing a massive rifle at the soldiers behind them. "Jump," he shouted. Yuna threw Hannah toward the ramp. Taiho caught her and pulled her inside. Then he reached for his sister, their hands connected. Taiho pulled her aboard just as the ramp closed. The Iron Ghost's engines roared, and they launched into space. Leaving the burning station behind, Yuna collapsed on the cargo bay floor. Her body finally gave out. Every muscle screamed. Every bone ached. Taiho knelt beside her. His face was lined with worry and relief and love. "I have got you," he said quietly. "You are safe now." Yuna looked up at her brother. For the first time since her arrest, she let herself feel something. Tears ran down her face, cutting clean lines through the dried blood. "Killed him," she whispered. "I killed them all." Taiho held her close. "You did what you had to do." She shook her head against his chest. "I did what they made me." The Iron Ghost jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, Commander Reek stood in the ruins of the docking bay and swore an oath of vengeance. The war had only just begun. The galaxy burned with the news. On every world, on every station, on every ship with a screen, the recording played again and again. A small human girl in chains, a cruel judge on his throne, and then the slaughter. Billions watched Yuna kill. Billions heard her final words. Humanity remembers. Humanity does not forgive. Council called it terrorism. They called it murder. They called it an act of war. But others called it something different. They called it justice. On human colonies scattered across the Outer Rim, people gathered in the streets. They watched the recording with tears in their eyes. For years they had lived in fear. For years they had bowed their heads and accepted whatever cruelty the council gave them, no more. She stood up. A woman said on Colony 7. She showed them we are not afraid. Killed my son last year, a man said on Colony 12. Said he broke some law I never heard of. Now I know we are not alone. The recording spread faster than the council could censor it. Underground networks copied it and shared it and protected it. Within 3 days, every human in the galaxy had seen it. And they were angry. Earth's united government called an emergency session. For the first time in 50 years, all human leaders met in the same room. They had one question to answer. What do we do now? The council's demand was simple. Surrender the human called Una for execution. Do this within 10 days or face total war. Some leaders wanted to comply. They said the species could not survive a war against the council. They said one girl's life was not worth billions of deaths, but others disagreed. If we surrender her, we surrender ourselves, said the president of the Eastern Federation. We tell the galaxy that humans can be bullied and broken. We tell them we have no pride, no honor, no courage. She broke their laws, another leader argued. She killed their officials. Their laws murdered a 12-year-old boy for stealing bread. The president slammed his fist on the table. Their laws are weapons designed to destroy us. I say enough. I say we stand with our daughter. The vote was close. But in the end, humanity chose defiance. The announcement was broadcast across the galaxy. The United Government of Earth rejects the Council's ultimatum. Una acted in self-defense against an unjust sentence. We will not surrender her. We will not bow. We will not break. The Council responded with threats. They assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, 1,000 warships, ready to burn Earth to ashdod. But then something unexpected happened. 3 species announced their withdrawal. From the Council, the Ven, a peaceful race of scholars. The Torak, a warrior culture who respected strength. And the Mishi, a trading civilization who had suffered under Council corruption for centuries. We have watched the recording, the Ven ambassador said. We have seen the truth. The Council does not represent justice. It represents tyranny. We stand with humanity. More species followed. Dozens of worlds that had endured Council abuse for generations finally found the courage to resist. They had been waiting for a spark. Una had given them one. The 1,000-ship fleet became 500, then 300. Then lest the Council was fracturing on the Iron Ghost, Una watched the news in silence. She sat in the cargo hold, wrapped in a blanket, barely eating or sleeping. The face on every screen was her own. The voice in every report was her own. But she did not feel like a hero. She felt like a monster. Tai-Ho tried to comfort her. Hannah tried to explain the political situation. But Una barely listened. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vaughn's face. She heard his screams. She felt his blood on her hands. I did not want this, she said one night, staring at the stars through the cargo bay window. I just wanted justice for Minho. You got more than justice, Hannah said gently. You started a revolution. I started a war. People will die because of me. Hannah sat beside her. People were already dying. The Council has been murdering our kind for decades. They just did it quietly so no one would notice. She put a hand on Una's shoulder. You made them notice. You showed the galaxy what we truly are. And what is that? Survivors, fighters, people who refuse to accept injustice. Hannah smiled sadly. Humans. Weeks passed. The Rebel Alliance grew stronger. Ships gathered. Plans were made. And somehow, without meaning to, Una became the center of it all. They called her the Judge Killer. The first spark. The girl who would not kneel. She hated every name, but she understood why people needed them. They needed a symbol. They needed hope, and she was the only one who could give it to them. The final battle came at the edge of Council space. 300 Council ships against a rebel fleet half that size. Everyone knew the rebels would lose. The Council had more ships, more weapons, more soldiers, but the rebels had something the Council did not have. They had a reason to fight. Una stood on the bridge of the rebel flagship, watching the enemy fleet approach. Taiho stood on her right. Hannah stood on her left. Around them, human and alien officers worked side by side. "They think we are afraid," Una said quietly. "Are we?" Taiho asked. "No." Una turned to face the fleet. Human ships, and Ven ships, and Torak ships, and Mishi ships, all flying together. All fighting for the same cause. "We are angry." She opened a channel to every ship in the fleet. Her voice echoed across the void. "I did not ask to be a symbol. I did not ask to lead a rebellion. I only wanted justice for a boy named Minho, who died alone and afraid because a cruel old judge decided his life was worthless." She paused. The fleet was silent, waiting. "Today we fight for everyone like Minho. Every innocent person the Council has crushed. Every voice they have silenced. Every life they have stolen." Her eyes hardened. "They called us primitive. They called us weak. They called us nothing." She looked at the enemy fleet. 300 ships. The might of the galaxy. Let them call us something else now. The rebel fleet charged. The Council fleet met them. And in the fire and fury of battle, a new galaxy was born. Humanity had found its voice, and it would never be silent again.